A court in the Philippines has convicted a prominent journalist of the crime of cyber libel. Maria Ressa now faces up to 6 years in prison. Watchdogs have called the case a serious erosion of press freedom under President Rodrigo Duterte.
Award-winning journalist Maria Ressa arriving in court in Manila to learn her fate. The verdict, guilty of cyber libel for a 2012 article her website Rappler published linking a businessman to human trafficking and drug smuggling. Ressa once worked for CNN and holds dual U.S.-Philippine citizenship. She says she's been devastated by the verdict, which she sees as a part of a government campaign against her and her publication.
Next year will be my 35th year as a journalist. I began as a reporter in 1986, and I have worked in so many countries around the world. I've been shot at and threatened, but never this kind of death by 1,000 cuts.
The case was closely watched as a test of press freedom under populist President Rodrigo Duterte. The court heard the libel complaint, even though the article in question was published 4 months before the cybercrime law was enacted. Ressa and Rappler are not the only prominent Philippine media to face problems with the authorities. Last month, one of the country's leading broadcasters was shut down. Rights groups warned the country is entering dangerous territory.
It is indeed a very sad day for press freedom and democracy in this country. The larger impact of this ruling is that this sends a message to every journalist in the Philippines, particularly the poor ones in the communities in the provinces, that you better shut up or you're going to be next.
Ressa now faces a prison term of up to 6 years. In spite of the verdict, she vows not to be silenced.
And Maria Ressa joins us now from Manila. Maria, what went through your mind as the judge read this guilty verdict against you?
It wasn't unexpected. If you look at it in the context of the 8 criminal charges I face, I had to post bail 8 times last year just to remain free. And then the slew of attacks against journalists that has intensified with the shutdown of the largest broadcaster just last month. I suppose I walked in feeling and knowing that there could be a worst case scenario that is even worse than this one. And so when I listened to it, I tried hard not to get angry and then to figure out how do we continue doing our jobs better given these attacks.
Are you prepared to go to jail?
Terry, this is a question I had to confront a while back because Amal Clooney actually just pointed out to me that the cumulative charges, the maximum jail penalty for all of them is almost 100 years. And so I think the question is that not challenging these cases would mean that I would give up the rights that are guaranteed in the Constitution, not just freedom of the press, but also the rights of Filipinos to information, to hold power to account.
Now, you say this verdict that's been handed down today is part of a campaign against you and your website, Rappler.com, by President Duterte and his government. What evidence do you have for such a campaign?
The actions of the government. Part of the reason Rappler came into the crosshairs is because we continued challenging the number of deaths in a very brutal drug war. The Commission on Human Rights in the Philippines estimates months ago that it was over 27,000 people killed. Impunity there. And then here you can see that, we were under trial today. Yes, the verdict came out today, but the justice system was also under trial because what's happened in the last few years is the weaponization of the law. The law tweaked legal acrobatics used against journalists, perceived critics, opposition. And in that sense, that also follows the kind of exponential attacks, what we call the propaganda machine on social media. So the narratives of the attacks come out first on social media, and then the law, the weaponization of the law follows. Come on. 8 cases that are all criminal charges, arrest warrants. I was arrested last year and detained. You can see these actions. And I think, to not take them in a granular scale, because every single one sounds almost plausible. The attempt to shut down Rappler, to revoke our business license, happened in January 2018. And again, if you get lost in the details, sure, it sounds plausible. But when you look at the context of it, and the context today is overwhelming. It isn't just a chilling effect on media.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about. What message do you think that your conviction sends to other journalists working in the Philippines?
I've been a cautionary tale. Rappler has been a cautionary tale for journalists in the Philippines. Be silent or you're next. That's what the government is saying. The government wants us to know it's got tremendous power, but it also wants to maintain a veneer of rule of law. And as long as it wants to maintain that veneer, we will continue doing our jobs and pushing back and challenging these cases in court.
You mentioned earlier that you're facing other charges. There are numerous other charges. You could face up to 100 years in prison for all those. What motivates you to continue your work as a journalist in the Philippines under these conditions?
I think because, like you, we know something is happening at this time period, right? This is a unique moment in history. We're seeing a rise of authoritarian, populist-style leaders, a rise of fascism almost. And you're seeing the attacks on media. I don't think I've lived, and this is my 34th year. I'm an old journalist, you know, and I've never seen anything like this. I've worked in war zones, I've covered conflicts, but this is a whole different time period. And I feel like in my country, at least, we're standing on the precipice. And we must do all we can to protect press freedom, which protects our democracy.
Maria, thank you so much for taking time to talk with us today. That was journalist Maria Ressa in Manila.